So, as an equal to death and taxes, video game sequels are the one thing in the gaming industry you can set your bloody watch to. Now, for the most part, sequels tend to play it safe a little, taking what worked, dropping what didn't, and tweaking things to create a profitable experience for both player and publisher alike. However, sometimes, whether due to a mass change in staff, a drastic change in direction, or lack of any direction at all, or a terribly placed launch window, some sequels fail to find even the inbuilt audience that they've already established. And making matters worse is the fact that in some cases, publishers and devs are aware of the problems with these sequels, yet still push them to market in order to make a quick buck and punish fans of the franchise with mediocre titles, or even worse, bungle things so hard that an excellent game is just lost in the mix. So let's take a look at them. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 video game sequels that were sent out to die. Number 8, Titanfall 2. Has there ever been a more tragic case of a game so technically brilliant and yet so underappreciated by its own publisher as Titanfall 2? For those that have played the game, they will absolutely be able to wax lyrical about how impeccable the action and gameplay of this title were, and they will speak at length about how this sequel took a bare-bones single-player offering and delivered a smart, impactful, and sometimes moving campaign that demanded your attention. Plus, the actual gunplay was so tight that it's hard to find comparisons within the genre. Actually, there is one comparison that's pretty apt, and that's its goddamn release window, which saw Titanfall 2 try and squeeze its way past Battlefield 1, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, Gears of War 4, and Civilization 6, which, as you can imagine, was pretty bloody hard. Titanfall 2 was nowhere near as established as any of these other franchises, and things got even worse when only a few weeks later the game was being slashed in price as the publisher showed its lack of faith in the end product. Were it to have had a better release window and a team willing to support it with a more pervasive marketing campaign, Titanfall 2 would have been better known to the public and likely would have received the series of sequels that it rightly deserves. Number 7, Metal Gear Survive. So Konami has made a lot of, let's just say, questionable decisions over the years, from the weird insistence to release pachinko machines over anything substantial in the Silent Hill franchise to whatever the hell eFootball was meant to be. It seems that the publisher more often than not just operates within a vacuum that is filled with its own rancid farts. It can also be pretty spiteful at times, especially when it comes to anything Hideo Kojima related, as can best be shown in the absolute abomination that was Metal Gear Survive. Now, technically this is classed as an offshoot game to the wider franchise, but seeing as it most definitely begins on the mother base from MGS5, it's almost impossible not to see this as a watered-down sequel in the loosest possible terms. And hell, it's better than calling it what this game actually is, which is a skip fire of piss wrapped up in rotten zombie genre crust. This game was like an ex giving you back your stuff, but they've taken the time to smear all over your clothes, a punctuation point that basically existed to trade on Kojima's aura without having his name anywhere near the actual product. Given the utter PR meltdown surrounding Kojima's exit, Konami couldn't have believed that this game would have done well, yet they squirted out the title anyway, hoping to shift a few units before the world got wise to their tricks, a move that was highlighted by review codes not being delivered to outlets until after launch, meaning that the flow of negative press was kept to a minimal. Boo. Number 6, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Your modern Marvel fan, maybe they don't even remember some of the X-Men characters. This was the line offered up by Capcom in an interview with GameSpot to justify one of the most boneheaded and defiant moves made by the publisher when it came to the lead-up for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. That this new title, which fans had been waiting on for years from a series that had dominated the esports scene, wouldn't actually include half of its most popular characters. Fans immediately soured on the title thanks to this rather dismissive approach by those looking to put a positive spin on the changes, and things weren't helped by the fact that Capcom seemed intent on pushing the new Infinity Stones feature above anything else, itself being a slight spin on the divisive gem system that they'd introduced in Street Fighter Cross Tekken. The devs wanted this game to do gangbusters and immediately be featured at esports events. However, thanks to their clear desire to chase fans of the developing MCU over fans of the actual fighting game franchise, Infinite alienated its core audience before it even launched. What followed was a critical lambasting and the title being snapped out of existence at competitive events. Number 5, WWE 2K20. Now, I have often made a note in the past that the WWE 2K games are titles that are built on an empire of sand, that thanks to the rather brutal annual turnaround, no real progress can ever be made on the franchise, and aside from a new coat of gloss to make wrestlers even more oily, things could only decay and crumble as the archaic engine struggles to hold things together. And it was WWE 2K20 that became the game that proved to be the breaking point, as it quickly became the biggest laughingstock in the entire gaming industry upon launch. The litany of bugs, the atrocious writing, and of course the supreme lack of features made this once proud golden goose a bit of a turkey. And it's not like the devs weren't aware of these issues, seeing as the team saw departures in the double digits after their contracts were fulfilled with this game, as according to Justin Leeper, who used to work on the SmackDown vs. Raw series, said that they didn't want the stink left on their CVs going forward. Yet while the devs might have known that they were working with garbage, the publisher 2K was spinning things in a much more positive manner, telling fans that this was the moment to step inside. Step inside? It sounds like we're about to be mugged, right? Or at the very least, we're about to enter a world of pain, which to be fair was pretty apt. Number 4. Tomb Raider: The Angel of Darkness. Tomb Raider: The Angel of Darkness is basically a checklist on how not to make a game, and therefore, is it any wonder that this title flopped onto the market with a whimper in 2003? So let's heat up the oven and begin making this disaster piece. First, we remove nearly all of the core members of the original design team and hand everything over to a new group because we're working on a new project and can't be slowed down by, what does it say on the recipe again? Oh yeah, things that have been proven to work by those that helped create the franchise. No, scrap that. Now let's mix in the fact that the team were working on new hardware and were building things from the ground up for the PlayStation 2, something that the devs clearly weren't prepared for. Now let's scrap the project a few times just because we don't have the leadership to guide things, and cap things off by removing key features at the behest of higher-ups to be used in later sequels, because that's always a great idea. Finally, let's give this a rushed deadline, and we have a game that doesn't reflect the original vision, wasn't supported with enough time, was missing much needed elements, including a bloody explanation as to how people survived the events of the last title, and only had its PC control scheme added in a week before launch. How could anyone have expected this to turn out well? Number 3. Legacy FIFA games on the Switch. If ever EA attempts to win you over with marketing campaigns and promises that they are customer-focused, always remember this essential piece of information. Mega publishers like this are not your friends. They do not make decisions with your benefit in mind. They only look to satisfy their ever-increasing drive for profits. And if you ever needed greater proof of this, just look at how Switch owners were shafted when it came to the legacy editions of the FIFA franchise. Here, the publisher has sold the install base FIFA 19 3 times so far, using the older game's foundation and just updating the team kits and lineups and charging near full price for the experience. The career mode is archaic, key features are missing entirely, and Ultimate Team is a barren and soulless experience, even more so than normal. And all of this boils down to a publisher that simply couldn't give two squirts of piss about the fanbase nor the product it's putting out. But you know what? EA doesn't care though, because as long as enough people pay for this slapdash experience, and seeing as each annual FIFA game tops the Switch sales chart, that's almost a dead cert, they'll keep printing FIFA 19 and will routinely send out this fresh coat of paint on a rusty skip each year to face a critical mauling with a spring in its bloody step. Number 2. Driver 3. Oh, Atari, how scummy you apparently always were and continue to be. When they aren't flogging you a plastic box of sadness wrapped up in nostalgia or causing the downfall of the entire video game industry in the 80s, it seems that good old Atari here is capable of irreparably damaging the symbiotic relationship between publisher and games review outlets through one of the most heinous examples of payment for positive coverage, which came to light during the abysmal development of Driver 3. Now at the time, Driver 3 was pipped to be the next big thing, a title able to swipe the crown from GTA and run off into the distance. Featuring graphics beyond its competitors, deeper driving mechanics, and a fully fleshed out game world, this truly was a title on the radar of many. However, after many years of funding the project, Atari grew tired of the title's mounting costs and so set a hard deadline for release no matter what state the game was in. And trust me, it was in a f***ing state. However, undeterred by what would surely be a public execution for the title, Atari kept its eyes focused on the one thing that mattered, making a quick buck. To do this, the publishers offered up extremely early copies of the game to review outlets in exchange for guaranteed positive reviews. The outlets took up this offer because they too were desperate to get on the scene and line their pockets, and so a devil's accord was made in which the paying public was left to foot the bill. The game died a death on release, with many shocked at the sheer broken nature of it all, but Atari cared not, for it had made its money back and then some, and simply let Driver 3 bleed out on the pavement. And number 1, Gravity Rush 2. Now, there might be some people out there that have no clue about the Gravity Rush franchise as a whole, let alone its much ignored second installment, which is precisely why Gravity Rush 2 is taking the top spot for this list. For outside of Titanfall 2, I can't think of a more deserving title that suffered such a maligned launch. Releasing in the universal dead zone of games, aka January, and competing with the likes of Resident Evil 7 and Dragon Quest 8, a small-scale game of this nature never stood a chance, and definitely wasn't helped with a marketing campaign that didn't even seem to grace the bloody internet. It's It's such a shame as well because the story of Kat and her gravity manipulating powers is an experience entirely its own, allowing players to fling themselves into the sky and hurtle around in a manner that can only be described as falling with extreme style. Couple this with a game world that's as beautifully designed as it is to explore, and you have the makings of what should have been a surefire hit. However, thanks to a bungled release window and obtuse marketing, many missed this beauty entirely, which is a real shame. And there we go, my friends. Those were 8 video game sequels sent out to die. I hope you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice, where I do all of my streaming outside of work, and it'd be great to see you over there. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. Hope you're treating yourself well with love and respect, my friend, and treating yourself well both mentally and physically, because you deserve all of the best things in life, alright? Like love, happiness, and success. And I want you to go out there and absolutely smash your life goals today. I believe in you. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.